All right, so continuing on with the conversation that we had Monday, where I gave you one of my top tips on helping you decide if you should keep going or if you should quit. We're going to talk about one other thing that you can do to help you make the decision. Now, if you want to learn more about this topic or have more questions, I don't know if you remember, you may be new to our community. About 3 weeks ago, we did a 7-week, excuse me, not 7 weeks, we did a 7-day class where we talked about the things that you could do if you specifically felt like you wanted to quit, but you couldn't quit because maybe people were counting on you, or maybe now is not the right time. But within that 7-day class, there are some resources that will give you a few more tips that I didn't share in these episodes, along with some other things that you can do to help you to develop the mindset and the strength and the fortitude that you're going to need to continue to do something that you don't want to do. Now, while most of us think that we can't get out of a situation that we don't like, most of the time we can. It just is scary to take the leap to the other side. So specifically for those of you that are in that situation, I shared tips within that class on what you could do if you just needed to know if you should quit or not. This is one of the tips that I shared in that information. I also wrote an article about this on LinkedIn. So you can either go to LinkedIn and read the article under the Lend group, or you can join the new Facebook community. And within that Facebook community, you will have access to a multitude of masterclasses that I've hosted thus far, as well as that 7-day course. So without further ado, let's get into the second tip for today. And it's about, are you doing the work or are you wishful thinking? I thought about this when I was writing that article, because we are taught in society to never give up, to keep going, to quit, to have the fortitude, to just keep going. We're taught that in our relationships, in our marriages, we're taught that in our jobs. And we've been conditioned to think that we need to put up with crap when it's sucking our soul. And I don't believe that that is true. And so I want to bring this discussion to the forefront today so that you can help decide if you are doing the work or just wishful thinking. Now, this ties into a conversation that I have with a lot of my private clients and teach them where it comes to using power versus force. A lot of us have been taught to go through life, and that if we want something to happen, we need to make it happen. We need to do something to make it happen. We need to manipulate, whether that be positive or negative. We need to manipulate a thing, a situation, a person, and able to get what we want. When you are doing it the way that we've been conditioned to do it, at least most of us, what you are doing is creating force about trying to get what it is that you want out of life, in the ways that have been most commonly taught. The problem with that is that anytime you are trying to force an issue, force a relationship, force a situation, you inherently create resistance. And when you create resistance, if you remember what you learned in science, that makes things that much harder for you to actually get the desired result that you want, because most things like to travel in the path of least resistance. So how do you combat that in your practice as a leader, in your internal psychology, in your relationships? Because remember, here it's about being a leader, both professionally, but also personally. You combat that through learning how to tap into your power, to be a more powerful leader, to be a more powerful person. But a lot of us haven't been taught that we can be powerful, and we think that we have to make things happen. So if you're not sure that you should give up on something, number one, first, sometimes you may need to consider if you're actually doing the work. And I'm going to say actually doing the work from a powerful place rather than trying to force. And by force, I don't mean you're pushing. I mean, you think that if you do something, if you do the right thing, if you do this, if you do that, that things are going to occur. Whereas if you're in your power, it's going to feel more like I'm showing up, I'm being in flow, I'm being who I am, I'm being true to myself, and things are just happening for me. Which way sounds better? Most of the time, we're not taught to be in our power. And being in our power makes mountains move to give us whatever we want. So sometimes you need to consider if you're doing the work, not the forceful way that we've been taught, but if you're doing the work by stepping into your power to do the work. And if you're not, then that's where you can start off first, is to learn how to do the work in a way that you are doing it from a place of power versus force. You also need to think about if you want to stay and make it work. Make it work doesn't mean that the outside conditions and people and things that you're experiencing need to change for it to work. It means that you're going to have to take an honest look and assessment at what it is that you want to, are trying to decide if you should quit it or if you should keep going, and decide if you want to make it work. Not them, not that, not he, not she. Do you want to make it work in the way that I'm teaching you is more powerful versus the force that we've been taught? And then, are you consistently doing everything in your power to make it happen? Not in your force to make it happen. Are you doing everything in your power to make it happen? If you're like any of the clients that I start off working with, then you probably are not doing everything in your power to make things work. You're probably doing things more from a forceful way to make things work. Another question you can ask yourself is this something that you really want, or is it something that you think you should want? Because then this goes back to some of the things that I talked about, say, in Monday's episode around heart and mind coherence. Because if you're trying to work towards something that you know deep down inside is not for you, then you might be forcing it. You might be in some wishful thinking type of stuff because you don't want it. So of course it's going to be hard. And then here's the important part for if you do want it. Do you have a clear strategy or plan to get what you want, or are you picking vague goals and then just trying to wing it? And I don't mean like when you say you want to become a doctor, you know that there's a clear path laid out for you to do that. But there's some goals such as becoming a leader, climbing the corporate ladder, having your own business that you may desire or want. Maybe you want better relationships. You may not think that those things need a clear strategy or have a clear strategy, but they do. And if you're just saying that you want things and are working toward what you want, but don't really have a clear strategy in place, a container upon which you're acting upon, then you're probably wasting a lot of energy winging it, doing things that you've been conditioned to think that you need to do or you should do or you could do, versus what it is that is really going to move the needle toward what it is that you want. And if you're not doing the right work, but exerting a lot of energy, then in a way you're wishfully thinking, because you're not going to get what it is that you want without doing the right work the right way. All right. So most dreams in life that you want to accomplish are going to require effort on your part. And it may be, I'm not going to say more effort, I'm going to say more, but in a way that you may not think about. So the things that you want to accomplish are going to require more effort than you may initially think. But think of effort back to the way where I said you tapping into your power. So you're going to have to be a more powerful person to elevate who you are in order to accomplish the dreams that you want out of life. And it's important to recognize, because a lot of times we underestimate, or we think that forcing our way through getting what we want is the answer to our progress. And what happens is you end up hitting a wake-up call, because either you run out of steam, you get burned out, or you notice that all of the effort that you are putting in is not impactful. And the reason why is because you aren't probably doing the right work. So you're not getting the return on your investment, or the expectations that you had are not matching up with what you see in front of you, what you are experiencing in your relationships, in your job, what have you. And this is again why all of these things that I'm teaching go hand in hand. The things that I taught you on Monday about heart and mind alignment need to go hand in hand with what I'm teaching you today, need to go hand in hand with all the other tips that I've included on this topic about how you can decide if you need to keep going or if you need to quit. The heart and mind alignment is important, because you can feel in your heart that you want something, but if the evidence is showing you otherwise, then you may be a bit delusional, or maybe you think you're coming from your heart, but you don't have that connection to yourself because you've lost yourself, because we're not taught to move through life being as connected to our true self as possible. And if you are being delusional about something, especially in relationships where you think your heart is telling you to stay, then maybe you do need to do a little bit of self-reflection and evaluating to at least look at your values and your priorities and see how they're matching up with this thing that you think that you need to keep doing and you think your heart is telling you to do it. Probably not your heart telling you to do it. Probably lost the connection to yourself and you don't know how to tap into what your heart wants, or you don't want to listen to your heart, because if you did, you'd have to do some scary things, make some scary decisions, leave some scary things behind, and forge a new path into the unknown. So again, as we close this out, it's totally okay to be optimistic. However, it is not okay to adopt wishful thinking and not check in with the logical mind, right? And the heart. Remember, they're both together. They're tools to see if the trajectory that you are on makes sense for your values, for who you are in life, for what you want out of life, especially if it's something that you do not have direct control over, or if it's something that you're not taking consistent, specific, strategic action toward to materialize from your power place, not the force. All right, so if you need help and you want to learn what it feels like to live a life where you are showing up as your true self in heart and mind alignment, you are showing up from your power place, things are just a little bit more effortless, they are moving you on the path of least resistance, and you're able to feel more balanced and feel more in control in your professional life and your personal life. If you want help with that, then reach out to me, DM me, email me, and we can talk more about what it feels like to work together doing my process, my method, to help you understand how to do that. If you want to get the whole series along with other masterclasses that I've taught thus far, then make sure you join the brand new Facebook group. All of the information will be included wherever you are watching this video. And until then, I will talk to you in